Dear viewer, welcome to the Tax Mchuzi show. I am your host, Joan Kansiime, and in today's episode, we shall be bringing clarity to you on the tax waiver. Now, this is arguably the most important topic or tax relief to a taxpayer right now. Yet we find that so many people lack understanding of what it really is and what it covers or how to access it. That's why today we decided to bring back our tax expert, Hajjat Hafsa, to take us through. But before we go into the topic, we shall later introduce ourselves and then we can get through the questions to what a tax waiver is.
Thank you so much. Good morning, viewers. And Hafsa Seguya is my name. I basically do tax education, and I put more energy on the central region because that's where I basically supervise in terms of tax education in URA.
Thank you so much, Hafsa. Briefly take us through what a tax waiver is, and if possible, you can also tell us the previous waiver we had and how it differs from this one.
Thank you so much, Joan, and viewers. Ideally, URA has had more than one waivers. And we are now, I think, on the third waiver. The first one was in 2020, just after COVID, when URA was instructed to ascertain the ledger balances of the clients as at 30th June 2020. So what we were instructed to do then was to ensure that we remove the penalty and the interest that was existing on one's ledger, so that we relieve the burden and leave them only with the principal tax. That was then. I didn't have any other conditionality when to pay and all that. So that was the first waiver that our clients enjoyed then, those who were registered and those who were in business then. Then the second waiver came last year. This waiver was very clear, and it was clearly stating that if you have any outstanding amount by 30th June 2023, if you have any outstanding amounts by June 2023 on your ledger, then it was very clear that kindly reduce on your outstanding amounts on the penalty and waiver, so that we equally reduce on the principal tax in relation to the amounts you have reduced. It's like your principal tax is maybe 2 million. So when you pay 500,000, it means that you have reduced at a rate of 25%. So I will equally reduce your penalty and interest then by 25%. Again, when you reduce, then I also do it on a pro rata basis, so that by the time you are done, then we'll also be done by removing the interest and penalty. But the second conditionality it had is it was giving us a payment period of only 6 months. Because ideally, when we pronounce a waiver, say effective 1st July, and it gives you a payment period of up to 31st December, then ideally, the only 6 months in which you have to juggle the amounts. So that's where also a challenge was for some clients, maybe who had big amounts and they couldn't handle. Maybe they tried and ideally couldn't finish. So that is the second waiver. So now the waiver we are bringing now is very clear that it is speaking into things like the prepayment period. It is looking at you, the current waiver 2526. It is looking at you as a registered client there and telling you to ascertain, ever since you started your business or ever since you registered for tax purposes, when I gave you my TIN, what has been the outstanding as at 30th June 2024. So you need to read the ledger balances and correlate and see where the outstandings are. But normally when we speak about outstandings, the principal tax has to be followed by the interest, because you've taken quite some time without clearing it, and maybe penalty in the event that maybe you didn't file in time, or maybe you underdeclared in a particular income tax return, things like those. So that is what we are now looking at. But what government has done to create a little bit of ease to the clients is to give them a longer repayment period. Because now the payment period is a year, from 1st July 2025 up to 30th June 2026. Because when we pronounce the waiver period, what it's covering you up to 30th of June 2024. But because I read the budget in June, and it's effective 1st July, so the repayment period applies from 1st July 2025 to 30th June 2026. And maybe the other beauty, because it still works in the same manner, that kindly reduce on this principal tax. Principal tax is actually the rate tax I would be demanding from you. But because you have delayed to make it good or to pay, then interest comes in. Because government expected to get that money in a certain month, and you are still probably using it or doing whatever it is, government hasn't got it. The penalty, maybe it arose because you didn't do whatever had to be done at a particular time. So the principles are more or less the same, but the difference in this waiver is, one, it is giving you a longer period. That within a year, you can see how to set yourself. Maybe every month, let me fight hard and see, can I pay 400,000 every month, depending on what the outstanding is, so that by 30th June, I will have completed. And the other thing, it's probably giving us what hasn't been in the previous waiver. That even though I am looking at a period from probably when you started business up to 30th June 2024, because apparently I am still speaking on the same date, but today is the 4th of December. So if this client hadn't paid by 30th of June, that implies that even effective 1st July 2025, these monies are still paying interest. So this waiver has also catered for that interest that is past the waiver period.
So
that is the other beauty. So that when a client clears, they don't expect to come back to them and say, you know, by the time you cleared, we were looking at you as at 30th June. But after 30th June, from 1st July, you know, you paid, you cleared the last installment maybe on the 1st of March 2026. And in between there, this amount was peaking interest. So this waiver is equally catering for that interest in the waiver arrangement. So those are the most two issues that came out that were pronounced in this waiver to make it a little different, the feel to be different from the previous waiver.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So what taxes does it cover exactly?
Yes, when we talk about this waiver, we are basically looking at domestic taxes. Taxes that are collected from businesses that operate within the country. When we say domestic taxes, we have the income tax there, from businesses, the rental income tax from rented or leased property. We have the VAT, we have excise duty on this side, we have the pay as you earn, we have the non-tax revenue, I'll have the stamp duty there. So we are basically looking at these taxes that do apply when I am doing business within the country.
So it applies to everyone, the individuals?
Exactly, it
SMEs?
applies to both individuals and non-individuals because they're all our clients.
Okay.
And they all face equally the same burden when someone's entity is incapacitated, when they can't pay. The burden is more or less the same whether individual or non-individual. It will still remain outstanding once it hasn't been cleared.
That's very clear. And in case you want to be part of the conversation, you can as well go to our socials and leave a comment, ask your questions, and shall be able to answer them promptly. And make sure that you subscribe to the channel, YouTube channel, the URA TV, to be able to get updates whenever we post. Hafsa, when you were talking about penalties, I remembered most of the questions that have been asked, especially on our platforms, is how do we, if we pay this principal tax that you've been talking about,
yes,
do the penalties and the interests get cleared there and then? Is it automatic, or how long does it take for us to know that it has been cleared?
The system is automatic. We designed it in a way that the moment you receive or you generate a payment registration slip for an amount that is outstanding on the principal tax, once it is honored by the bank, you pay and it reflects on the system. Then ideally it will move from the debit side and come to the credit side. Equally, it will trigger a reduction, as I said, on a pro rata basis to reduce the principal and interest. But even though it doesn't, in case there is a system glitch, the client is free to come to us and tell us that when I look at my ledger, I am paying, but I am not seeing a shift in the penalty and maybe in the interest, so that we can trigger that back end or manually. But that is what it's meant to do. Because by the time we push out an amendment, we have to live with it. We have to walk it and feel it, so that our clients take our trust at the end of the day, because they are paying on that trust.
Sure.
They are getting onto the waiver on that trust. So ideally, that is what the system is meant to demonstrate.
So how does the taxpayer apply for this waiver? Is there a form they need to fill, or again, the system, does it apply for it automatically?
You don't need to fill any form, but when you are generating the amounts payable, it is very clear. I've told you that when you started business, for example, maybe it was 2021 up to July, up to 30th June 2024. So when you're generating the payment slips of these amounts that are outstanding in domestic taxes, the period you put should communicate to that time, within that time. Because if it communicates off that time, then that means it's not going to benefit from the waiver.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. That was very clear. Maybe what you could also tell us more about is why is the government offering this? And then why should I take interest as a taxpayer?
Why is the government offering this? Ideally, government is cognizant of the fact that these clients went through COVID.
True.
Some entities didn't manage to come back to reality. Some came back. Some are still struggling. So ideally, it is our work, it's government's work, to see that we help in protecting the sustainability of these clients, of these businesses, to still be alive to the call of paying taxes. So that comes more or less as an incentive to see that they can still be able to stand and probably do what they are meant to do. So I feel that is equally a plus, which is not really common. And in the event that it's not that common, I would like you who is listening to me to take advantage. Never know, next year the waiver may not come back. yet it left you with outstanding amounts that you did not ensure that you benefit through the waiver. So let us see how to benefit, because this is basically a kind of an incentive to us as taxpayers, because you've given government back a lot in terms of revenue. So when it is coming to see that it helps this entity or these entities not to close, to see that you can be a little liquid by remaining with some monies, what you would have paid in interest and penalty, you have remained with it. That means government is trying to see how sustainable we can help in managing these businesses remain afloat, so that at the end of the day, the same businesses can support the call of taking their fair share of taxes.
Thank you so much. You could also help us describe for us the different penalties that I may get if I maybe don't hit the deadline, because it's just 6 months towards the end of this waiver. Now, if I miss that chance, what are some of the penalties that I may face?
Ideally, if you miss the opportunity to jump onto the waiver and see how it benefits you or gives you a financial relief, then that means after 31st of June 2026, we are going to revert back as URA and demand the whole position.
Sure.
And in demanding the whole position, definitely some companies or some clients are struggling. At times you may end up closing the business that you wouldn't have closed. So that is why we want to see that we move together, so that in the moving together, we understand one another. And secondly, it gives you a little bit of a financial, at least a financial, it relieves the stress. Because if you're looking for money east, west, and south, if I can relieve a portion, whether 10% or 20%, I'll have done something great for this business. Because you can even use the same monies and you pay salaries for those who work for you, other than paying everything to government. So we were trying to see, how does this client benefit? Because normally clients ask, how do we benefit? But we want at this time of need, government to come out and see how it can help you, how it can help these businesses when actually they are in need.
And maybe now you can break down on the penalties. What are the actual penalties?
When we look at the normal penalties, we have one, we have penalties for late filing. When I'm looking at the monthly tax types that have a due date of 15th, by the 15th of the preceding month, that is already a due date or a timeline that is defined, that when this VAT return, when the payers and return, when the VAT, when the excise duty return, when the WHT return comes in longer than you expect it, because here we give you 15 days into the following month. Because if they are monthly tax types, we have to give you the leeway to operate that month, so that within the 15 days into the other month, you're helping us to wrap up. And when you wrap up, you send us the return and probably make a payment. So what exactly you are asking, when you pay, when you file late, there is a penalty of 200,000. And ideally, when you pay late, there is no penalty, but there is interest that will accrue whenever the monies come after 30th of, will come after 15th of a particular month, the month that follows that month. For example, now I'm in December, but I have started receiving returns for November, both VAT, payers and WHT, excise duty. So that by the 15th, when your return comes in after 15th, that's when the penalty comes in of 200,000. we equally have a penalty of understatement of provisional return. Because in a given year, we expect most of the businesses to give us 2 returns. We expect them to give us a provisional return that is within the course of that particular year. For an individual, we expect it 3 months into the next year. Then for non-individuals, I expect it at least 6 months to reach this side. So when those returns do not reach in time, or actually do not reach, then there is a penalty that will come in. And this penalty is computed in such a way that it's going to pick 2% compounded every month, every other day, not even month, every other day. So that is basically for income tax purposes. That is basically what it is. There is a penalty for failure to keep records. There is a failure for there is a penalty for failure to use a TIN. And by the way, when you don't use a TIN in most of these transactions, in income tax we have what we say that we disallow expenses that come on a document that does not have a TIN, provided that particular document makes up 500 million. Sorry, not 500, 5 million in a month. When your expenses make 5 million, ensure that that person you are paying the 5 million gives you a document. When their TIN is there, their name is there. That is one thing. Because some of you may not mind because you say, no, because for me, they are paying me. But do not forget that the person paying you has to expense in their return. How will I accept the expense, yet the expense hasn't come on a proper document? It's like saying IFRS. IFRS, when you do not present a transaction that comes through a fiscalized document, either an e-receipt or an e-invoice, then we disallow it. The system won't accept it unless when one is not registered for VAT purposes. But if one is registered for VAT purposes, it is mandatory that you have to operate on the IFRS platform. That means you'll be issuing e-invoices. But when one is operating, you can do it not mandatorily, so that in the event that you need to transact, at least generate that e-receipt, because it will save you a lot. These days you can no longer supply government when you're not on IFRS. Not VAT, but IFRS. Because government needs to validate that FDN number, the physical document number on that transaction. And once it can't validate it, then that more or less nullifies the document. So that is where I wanted us to look at when we are basically talking about penalties.
Now, Hafsa has really simplified most of this information, and especially when it comes to the documents you may need and the steps you may take. I think if you feel you're not so sure, it's always best to always inquire. Our social media handles, we are always on and ready to respond 24/7. Our telephone numbers are always available, and you can always visit every office, any URA office that is near your home, to get all this information so that you're guided promptly, so that you may not miss any of these deadlines or make mistakes that may cause you to suffer these penalties.
And by the way, Joan, we have made a little bit of a shift. You know, at times telling a client to be coming in office is a little cumbersome, because maybe they need to close the business, the time taken, the transport put in. We want to also encourage our clients to make use of the digital platforms we have, because you can self-serve yourself on the digital platforms. We have the WhatsApp, the URA WhatsApp. You don't need to leave your shop, and you communicate to us. We're on 772 14 code 0. That means there are 4 zeros at the end. That is what I mean by code 0. You can equally touch point. You can send us a message there, very clear, touch point at ura.go.ug, so that we understand you at the end of it, so that we communicate as you're in your shop, minding your business. Then you keep on communicating, so that you only come to office when you're actually required. You only come to our offices, because there are certain things we can probably solve online, and you don't need to keep walking back and forth, because whenever you're walking, you're putting in transport. You are basically closing the business. So that is what we want to save our client from, so that as they try to communicate to us, they know that we have digital platforms. Yes.
Thank you very much, Hafsa. Your responses are really conclusive and very informative. I hope to every viewer that is watching and also listening, you're able to take on this initiative before it stops or it ends, because we are not sure if it will be there the next year. Now, as we conclude, maybe you can make emphasis, Hafsa, on, I know you mentioned it, but I want it to be emphasized, since it's one of the biggest questions that we are getting, that is the tax waiver a discount on a tax itself, or forgiveness or pardon for the associated penalties and interest? I want it emphasized as we close.
A tax waiver is not a discount, because when you're discounting, it means you're using a particular formula.
True.
And secondly, it means you're leaving a certain amount there and taking away a certain amount. A tax waiver is basically a tax relief. Relief in that if you were to bring back maybe 10 million, we have relieved you of the penalty. We have relieved you of the interest. Kindly bring back less those figures. That is what a waiver is meant to do.
Now that is very clear, and I thank you for watching. Please make sure that you subscribe, you comment, you leave inquiries. If there is anything you feel wasn't clear enough, go ahead and comment, share with your friends. Let us develop Uganda together. Thank you very much, Hafsa. Do you have any parting words?
Maybe what I would like to send through to our viewers today is to thank them for moving with us, cooperating with us, and also giving us taxes. It's not the easiest, not until you wake up in the morning and you need to collect taxes and nobody is responding. That is when you realize they have an importance. Kindly reach out to us and ensure that you address your problems. We see how to maybe give you advice depending on what it is. But we'd like to thank you so much for paying that tax, giving me that coin in its a measure the way it is, whether small, medium, or big. Thank you so much. You do great lots, because we can't develop Uganda together without those resources. But kindly ensure that you utilize the waiver so that it can benefit you. It can give us a bit of relief in our different spaces.
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.